Hello, this is Soundout here, and welcome back to another Power Rangers review. Today we'll be taking a look at the long-awaited Power Rangers Legacy Collection figures, Wave 1. This is a brand new line of 6.5-inch, approximately, tall Ranger figures that are highly articulated from multiple seasons, include build a Megazord pieces to build a Megazord for the corresponding season, and is said to be covering the entire franchise, and every single team will be getting figures according to Bandai and their current plans. This is a great thing, and I'm really excited that this has finally happened. So without further ado, let's start taking a look at Wave 1 of the Power Rangers Legacy figures. A quick note, the waves contain figures from multiple seasons, and Wave 1 contains 3 Ninja Storm Rangers and 2 Mighty Morphin Rangers. I'm going to review them all together because it is one wave of figures, even though they are from separate teams. So let's begin taking a look at the Mighty Morphin figures, and then go to the Ninja Storm figures. So here's the packaging for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Red Ranger Legacy figure. Really cool design. I love how it has the Ranger helmet on one side, and the lightning that is colored to that specific Ranger, plus the logo from the season. And the generic Power Rangers logo, I think, works really well to show that this is a Legacy line. So here's the Legacy Red Ranger. Before we begin, let's just take this out of the way. This is the torso of the Dino Megazord. I have nothing else to talk about with this until we get 4 of the Rangers, so we'll just put it off to the side and build on it in the future. But for now, let's take a look at the Red Ranger. Now this Red Ranger includes one accessory, which is a tiny little Blade Blaster. He does not have a Power Sword. He does not have a Blade Blaster in gun mode. None of the Rangers seem to do. There is a Power Sword that was released as part of the Comic-Con exclusive version of this, which was a translucent plastic, I believe, and it also included the Power Sword for the Megazord. But considering the back of the box shows the Megazord as having fist holes, and not actual holes in them, just solid fists, should be interesting to see how that works out. In terms of sculpting, this figure really nails the important details. The helmet sculpt is really good, and honestly captures the likeness of the helmet from the series better than the SH Figuarts release. And the belt buckle is very well painted. So you have the Power Morpher with the coin. Everything's painted in. There is no tiny text, but hey, that's still pretty good for how small it is on this figure. But everything is painted, including the back, which is something that Bandai has always struggled with, even in their previous Legacy figure attempts. And overall, the sculpting looks really good. The only weird thing is that there's like this divot in the shoulders. This is kind of a reused part from the Ninja Storm Rangers, I believe, because they actually have molding to accommodate that. But that is one odd thing about the mold here. But other than that, the details are phenomenal throughout the entire piece. As you can see, it's even got the things on the boots that we typically see. There is no treading on the bottom, but that's where all the copyright information has been stamped, so it's not actually disrupting the figure in any way. Really, really nice. In terms of articulation, this guy is just phenomenal. This line's articulation standard is quite high, and it's really, really nice to see. The neck is on a swivel hinge here, plus a left and right swivel. It's not a full ball joint from what I can tell. It's just a swivel with an up and down neck pivot. It does leave this little tab there, but that's not really that big of an issue in the long run from what I've seen. The forward and back ab crunch works really well, including painted detail to keep that design going. So that works really, really nicely. Pretty deep bend. The shoulders are full universal joints, along with a bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, which work surprisingly well, a glove rotation here, and a Figuarts style triple jointed wrist. So it's actually got a swivel there, swivel here, plus a pivot in any direction you want it to. Also, the hand is on a ball joint, which means it does pop off if alternate hands for a later figure are needed. It does have a waist swivel. Looks like, I think it's the sculpting of the belt, or it could just be that's as far as his waist goes, because that's how a human works. Hips are quite phenomenal. The range is really, really good. Not so much back, but it does adjust really nicely. He does have a thigh swivel here, which is great. Double jointed knee, really, really nice. The boot cuff rotation here, plus a forward and back pivot and a left and right tilt. So it's got really, really nice ankles, which I think was the biggest problem with their classic Thundercats, which had just about as much articulation. Now, like I said, he only includes one weapon, which is his little Blade Blaster baton thing, which, I mean, it was used for some attacks in this mode, but other than that, it is kind of a disappointing accessory. Would have liked to see the personalized weapons, but I understand packing in brand new molding for new line plus build a Megazord part into a $20 price point. Kind of shaky. But overall, the articulation is just phenomenal, and most of the time, I kind of feel like I don't need the sword as much. So here we have a nice little scale comparison shot. This is all the recent Red Rangers we've gotten: the Armored Might version, the Super Mega Force version, and the SH Figuarts. As you can see, he's about the same height as the Armored Might. The Armored Might does feel bulkier because of the sculpt being a very, very muscular design. And he actually has more range of articulation than the Armored Might figure, which is really cool, with the double jointed elbows, plus the wrists that do have more pivot because they aren't so close into the body. But as you can see, all the other ones came with power swords, and this guy doesn't, which just kind of feels a little weird. And I'm not going to lie, it does kind of suck that he doesn't have the weapons. It's something I can get over, though, personally, because I mostly pose the Rangers without the weapons if I don't have them, which is what I did for years with my Automorphin Rangers before I got their weapons. So overall, the weapon thing's not the biggest deal, but there you go. There's your nice little comparison shot of the modern Red Rangers. Now here's a comparison I'm sure many of you are interested in. This is the Legacy figures scaled with the other popular 6-inch lines of the modern era, like DC Universe Classics / DC Multiverse, Star Wars Black Series 6-inch, Marvel Legends, Masters of the Universe Classics, DC Collectibles, Icons, and Animated Series. So you can kind of see that the Red Ranger really does fit, and the line fits in general. He's a little taller than the DC and Marvel figures, but he is about the same height as the Masters of the Universe. And honestly, if you're putting together a display of similar figures in the same scale, and posing helps with the scaling too, this honestly doesn't look too bad, especially if you consider characters like Spider-Man being a little shorter because he's younger, and Blue Beetle, same thing. So it all works out, I think, in the grand scheme of things. I think that the scaling is really nice. They're not too big, like the Armored Mights felt too big to really fit with anything, and overall I'm really, really happy with how they scale with the other 6-inch lines I collect. Overall, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Legacy Red Ranger is really, really cool. It's a solid figure, though I do feel like the lack of a weapon to really use. If it was the Blade Blaster and gun mode that fit in the holster, I think it would have worked a little bit better. But overall, it's not really that big of a deal if you just look at how the poses you can actually do. His articulation range is quite phenomenal, and a lot of the punching fist poses that are done from the series can be replicated here. And that's really, really nice. Plus, we're getting those cool Megazord figures, so it's all kind of a balance. Like I said, this guy retails for $19.99, and honestly, I feel like it's worth it. But maybe not as worth it as some of the other figures in this wave. Next up, we have the Mighty Morphin Green Ranger. The Green Ranger does not include a Build-A-Megazord piece for the Dino Megazord, but instead includes the Sword of Darkness, plus an extra pair of hands to play the Dragon Dagger. This is what they're doing with the 6 Rangers, apparently, is they're including extra accessories instead of a Build-A-Megazord part. Would have been kind of nice if they came with the Megazord swords, but I think the Sword of Darkness is something cool that Bandai of America has never personally done themselves, so it's a really nice inclusion to see. Here we have Tommy the Green Ranger. Now this is a 6th Ranger, so it does not include a Build-A-Megazord part for the Dino Megazord, but instead includes bonus accessories. Nice way of doing that. It lets you collect the 6th Rangers too if you don't want the Megazords. But let's talk about the issue with this figure. First of all, this is the figure that a lot of people will be buying just because it is Tommy the Green Ranger. And this is actually the second one I've owned. First time around, the hand broke off. Not meaning to interrupt the flow of the review, I just wanted to point out, this just happened while I was filming. I went to swap out the hands on the Green Ranger, and the peg broke off in the hand. When I went to pull it off, it just pulled the peg right with it. So now that I've bought a second Green Ranger, because I could not figure out how to get that wrist joint to be repaired, let's take a look at this figure. So I will state this right away: if you're getting this figure, be very, very careful when swapping the hands. They are not like Figuarts wrists. They're designed like them, but they don't have the strength that Figuarts wrists have, so be very, very careful. Taking a look at the sculpt of the Green Ranger, you can see the green color is very, very nice. It is a little brighter than the show color, at least in hand. I'm not sure how that's going to transfer to camera, but we shall see. The sculpt for the helmet, I think, is really well done, and a lot better than the sculpt on the SH Figuarts release of Green Ranger. So really, really nice overall. Of course, belt buckle is painted, and everything looks really, really good. I love the armbands that are molded into the figure and not separate pieces like the Armored Might release. Very, very nice Green Ranger. The articulation on the Green Ranger is the same as the Mighty Morphin Red Ranger, so let's jump straight to accessories. We have a very popular weapon, the Dragon Dagger. Nicely, nicely painted. This is probably the best Dragon Dagger accessory I have seen from a Bandai of America product. Bandai of Japan's got it beat by a little bit. Pretty much all the details are there except for the little mouthpiece is not painted, and there is no paint on the handle, which is fine because that way it doesn't rub off onto the hand. Really, really cool overall. Now, while it's his main weapon, it does have the ability to holster, as you can see here, and looks really nice. It's got a black holster, which is accurate, and looks really cool. Now, his other accessory is a little bit more exciting. Here we have the Sword of Darkness. This is to replace the Build-A-Zord part, and in fact looks really, really cool, plus it's something that Bandai of America never did. Bandai of Japan did it with their SH Figuarts Green Ranger, and this version is very similar, except it doesn't have the tassel on the end, which makes it easier to put into the hand than the Japanese release. So, good on Bandai of America there. Functionality, I always feel like, is better than style. If it's hard to get the accessory into the hand, why do it at all? So, really, really cool. I dig this weapon. It is got a minor issue. It is made of a soft rubbery plastic, so it does have a tendency to bend if you're not careful. As you can see, it's kind of warped from out of the package. So be very careful not to put it in a position like if you have it stabbing at the ground, don't leave it bent like that because then it'll probably stay like that. So be wary of how you pose it, but it is very, very nice to see and a nice versatile weapon. Now, like I mentioned, this guy does have alternate hands. He has Dragon Dagger playing hands. This is something that Bandai of America's Green Ranger figures have never been able to do. First of all, because of articulation. Second of all, they don't have the right sculpting on the hands. This is absolutely awesome. The only problem is the wrist joints. And it's not necessarily the wrist joints, because they are pretty solid on every other figure I have. I think the problem lies in the hands themselves. The ball joints were smaller. The socket for the ball joint is actually a little bit smaller than the ball joint itself. Much like on the Megazords, which we'll take a look at in a little bit, where the actual socket is molded slightly smaller than the ball joint, which means you have to wedge it on very carefully. When it's a big old Megazord piece, it's fine. When it's a tiny wrist joint like this, not so fine. So be very careful when swapping to these hands. Or if you get them on once and don't ever take them off again, leave it like this. This looks really, really cool. Personally, I'll be trying to swap these back, hopefully not breaking another Green Ranger. I will probably not bother buying another one. So be very careful with these hands. It is a really cool effect, and honestly, in my opinion, I'd say if you get this figure and you want him posed with the Dragon Dagger playing it, like in front of a Dragon Zord, do that and then leave it and not try to mess it up too much. These, like I said, not as sturdy as SH Figuarts in the least, at least when it comes to the hands. And I don't think it's the wrists. I think the figure wrists are fine. I think the problem is the sockets of the hands. This is something that Bandai of America is not used to, with alternate hands on ball joints. So I will give them a pass, but I do hope that the feedback does get back to them that they do need to make either the wrist pegs shorter or the sockets a little larger on the ball joints for the alternate pieces. As you can see, there's a lot of similarities in the sculpting and scale of the SH Figuarts Green Ranger to the Legacy Green Ranger. And honestly, I think the Legacy Green Ranger is a great alternative, especially since the Figuarts Green Ranger goes for like $70 or more these days. So I'd say $20 as opposed to $70. The SH Figuarts does not do a whole lot more than the Legacy figure does, and the Legacy figure actually has a better range of articulation and is a little bit sturdier overall. I find that the joints have not gotten loose on the Legacy figure, while they did get loose on the Figuart in the same amount of time. I would have the Armored Might Green Ranger and the Super Mega Force Green Ranger here, but I kind of packed them away to storage because I feel like I've bought way too many Green Rangers over the time that I've been collecting Power Rangers. So I apologize if I'm not more enthused about this Green Ranger, but if you're looking for a new Green Ranger figure, this Legacy one is really, really good. Here we have the Ninja Storm Red Ranger. As you can see, the packaging style stays the same despite being representing a different season. Really nice overall. Really cool stuff. Starting a new team, we have Ninja Storm Red. This is the Red Wind Ranger, and is the first part of the Ninja Storm portion of this wave. And he does include the torso of the Storm Megazord, which includes his Zord, which was the Hawk Zord, up here, but also the torso, which was made up of the Lion originally. So we'll just put that off to the side. Much like the other Rangers, the sculpting is really, really impressive. The helmet sculpt is perfect, in my opinion. It looks really, really nice, and not that weird stylization that was on the SH Figuarts release. You can also see the Morpher, without being fully painted, is fully detailed. And the belt buckle, of course, is very detailed as well. And the chest symbol has been perfectly tampographed on without any paint mess up. There is very little paint bleeding on any of these figures, and that is really, really impressive to me. The articulation is the same as the Red and Green Rangers, and I don't feel like I need to show it again. Nothing is different. It is all the same articulation space, which is wonderful for this guy being a ninja. Accessory-wise, he does come with a sheathed sword. It does not have a gun mode, it's just a sword. And it does peg into the back here. And what's cool is that for the first time in Bandai of America world of things, you actually kind of grab the sword out of there. So you can do that classic holding the sword, turn to the camera, and stand pose. Kind of like that, if you get what I mean. Anyways, so you got that going on, and then you also get another ninja sword, which is actually really well painted. That's the first with Bandai, as well as painted weapons. So you got a well painted sword here. The only problem with this is the handle is still in the sheath, and it does not come out as one solid piece. So it looks like he has two swords. Kind of weird, but oh well. I also have the sword backwards, if you did notice that. So really wise weapon choice, because now he has a sword, he can run around slashing things. A little bit more range of posability than the Mighty Morphin Red Ranger with his little baton thing. So really, really cool. The hips are a little bit loose on mine. I'm not really sure why, but the extra joints do balance them out quite nicely. So here he is next to his Super Mega Force counterpart and his SH Figuarts counterpart. The Figuarts, I think, only really excels by having his Hawk Blaster and also having a fully painted Morpher. That's pretty much it, though. I think that the sculpting on the Red Wind Ranger is a little bit better, especially in the helmet. It looks more natural. And the body proportions are a little funky, but I always thought this Figuart looked very, very thin, even for a Power Ranger suit standard. I do like the way that the Legacy Red Wind Ranger does look. Overall, the Red Wind Ranger is really, really cool. I think the sculpting really works. I do like how the shoulders are not the straight mesh, but actually do have the overlapping shoulder pad, which makes it look very, very accurate. The articulation is wonderful, and the accessories are really, really good. I honestly feel like he is a categorically better figure than Mighty Morphin Red, and honestly is worth your time and money. He's just super duper cool. Next up, we have Ninja Storm Blue Ranger, our first female for the line. It's great that we already got a female Ranger in the first wave. This is definitely Bandai making improvements in their marketing. Ninja Storm Blue is our first female for the line, and she is quite awesome. First things first, she has come with the leg, and really, really nicely, the dolphin arm of the Storm Megazord. So we'll put those off to the side for later. Taking a look at her, though, you can see she comes with the same accessories that the other two Rangers come with, which is the sword and the sword in a sheath. So we'll put those off to the side. Let's take a closer look at Ninja Storm Blue. Much like the Red Wind Ranger, the sculpt on Ninja Storm Blue is really, really good. I love the shoulder armor is being part of the arms, the Morpher is really well detailed, and the mesh on the arms, as well as the leggings, is really well done. Even down to the boots there. Really, really nice. Also, I want to talk about the female body sculpt. Usually Bandais are very disproportionate and kind of weird, kind of like their current 5-inch scale here. You can see that things just look very, very thin in places. But this is a very natural look for a female character, and I do think that is really, really nice. Now, articulation-wise, for the female body mold of the Power Rangers Legacy line, we have a forward and back neck joint, a left and right, just like the males. You got the ball joint shoulders, you got a bicep swivel up here, a single joint, but it does have the clearance of the double joint, which is great. She's got the same triple joint wrists, the Glove rotation, she has a upper ab ball joint, which is better than an ab crunch. It just works for the female body better. Her hips have the same range as the male Rangers, except a little impeded by the skirt. The skirt does have slits in it, but it is a hard plastic, which I think is just kind of odd. Double joint knees work really well. Her bottom part of her leg actually goes farther, which is kind of strange. Boot rotation, the ankle pivot, and then the ankle tilt. So she does have quite the range of movement for a female Power Ranger figure, which usually get like no articulation. Naturally, she comes with the same sheath piece that the male Rangers come with the handle molded in, and it doesn't look out of place because they actually didn't make her super thin like they've done before, which is why the same weapon reuse doesn't work too well. To that same extent, she comes with the same sword, and it actually fits in her hand. It's like they designed the handle to actually work, or the hands are just made big enough, finally. Female Power Ranger figure hands are usually too small to hold the weapons that the male Rangers come with, and it becomes problematic. But overall, accessory-wise, she is pretty decked out. No, she doesn't have her megaphone thing, but still pretty cool. Here she is next to her SH Figuarts counterpart. This Figuart I always thought was odd because the helmet was too squashed and was a little too stylized, making it look like it's smiling, kind of odd. And also it's the wrong shade of blue. The Legacy figure here is actually the correct light blue, while this is a darker blue. Kind of odd color choice in the Figuart, but in this case I kind of like the Legacy figure more. Also, there's more range of movement in the articulation. Overall, Ninja Storm Blue is very well done and quite a good female action figure, let alone a good female Power Ranger. I honestly feel like this is probably Bandai of America's best sculpt for a figure. I love the fact she doesn't lose any articulation range from the male Rangers, which is a thing that typically happens with female figures. Also, I think the body proportions are better than what DC Multiverse and Marvel Legends both put out, and I'm really excited to see more characters in this scale from different teams. It's going to be really, really cool to see some nice female Power Ranger figures on the shelves. And finally, we have the Ninja Storm Yellow Ranger. As a side note, as you notice in the back of the Ninja Storm Rangers, it actually does say, build a Dino Megazord, not the Storm Megazord. So minor typo, hopefully later releases of these figures will correct that. That would be really, really nice on Bandai's part, but it's a minor thing. It's not too big of a deal in the long, grand scheme term of stuff. Overall, really, really cool. Let's get on to the review. Here we have our final figure for today, the Ninja Storm Yellow Ranger. This completes the main Wind Rangers, as this is the Yellow Wind Ranger, and also gives us the last two parts of the Storm Megazord, which is the left leg and the lion arm, which is appropriate because he does have the Lion Zord. Of course, you had to split up the rest of the Lion Zord to the other Rangers, but that's just how it goes when you're building a Megazord. You can't put most of it with one figure. And let's take a closer look at Ninja Storm Yellow. Much like with Ninja Storm Red and the Mighty Morphin Rangers, very nice body sculpt, and the sculpting detail is really good. Same sculpt of the Morpher. The new helmet is really, really nice. I think it pulls off the look of the helmet nicely with the lion fangs even being painted. Again, no paint bleed on any of these, which is just amazing, especially for Bandai of America. You can see the back of the hands have the little covers on them. Really, really cool overall. So, very nice sculpt. The articulation is the same as the other Rangers, but I do want to point out a funny point with the ab crunch, is that the way they molded the lion mouth, or the way they painted it on there, so it's still there when they move the ab joint back, which means the lion can kind of like chomp down on things, which is just kind of funny. I find that amusing. Of course, Ninja Storm Yellow comes with the same two accessories that Red and Blue came with, which was the sword and the sheathed sword. Still wish there was some kind of removable handle on that, but what can you do? Here he is next to his SH Figuarts counterpart. I do like the yellow on the Legacy figure a little bit more. It kind of matches, it's more toyetic color than the yellow on the Figuart, which is kind of dull. The SH Figuart does have a pretty good head sculpt. I thought it was probably the best of the Ninja Storm Figuarts they did do. So, there you go. There's a little bit of side comparison. Not much else to say about Ninja Storm Yellow. He's basically Ninja Storm Red with the new head design, and nothing really else new to him, aside from the Build a Megazord parts. Now that we have all the Ninja Storm Rangers collected, let's bring together the Storm Megazord. To put together the Storm Megazord, it's all ball joints, so everything goes together pretty well. It's a little difficult because these ball joints are really, really tight on the hips and shoulders. So you gotta kind of like wedge them on there until they stick. They're pretty sturdy. I can tell they're sturdier than the wrist joints because they are big old ball sockets. But once you get all this together, you can see that this is the hardest one to get on of them all. See, once you got all these pieces together, pretty tall Megazord. So here is the Storm Power Megazord, as it is known in toy form. The back of the packaging says Dino Megazord, which this is not. This is the Storm Megazord. What's really, really cool about these Megazord figures is they are very, very show accurate in that they look like the actual costumes used in the show. So you can see everything's kind of shrunk down in places, so the suit actor has maneuverability. It's not so accurate to the transformable Zords, and nor do these turn into the individual Zords. And the articulation does reflect that. Getting it out of the way, the ball joint neck is pretty good, but it only rotates really well. It doesn't look up and down very easily. We'll get to those little things in the back there in a second. But it is about the range of articulation the suit actor would have. Same with the shoulders, and the elbows, and the wrists. So pretty much any pose you want to put in, you can do that. The hips are restricted, just like the suit actor would. The knees do bend on this ball joint, which is a little problematic because it does pop off kind of easily. But it does stay pretty well on mine. And then you have an ankle ball joint as well, so you get that kind of range of movement to keep it solid. But yeah, really neat. It doesn't come with any accessories, naturally, as none of the other Rangers came with accessories. The hands do pop off, so that may lead to something in the future, as well as these back pieces. These come off for some reason. I don't know why. I can't see any purpose unless they're planning some kind of compatible Thunder Megazord. But overall, really, really cool. And it is quite a bit taller than the Rangers. And I really mean quite a bit. It's pretty impressive. So, really, really cool. I love that the 3 Wind Rangers can make their specific Megazord, and I'm hoping that the 2 Thunder Rangers can make theirs. Overall, I think the Build-A-Megazord concept is really cool and gives incentive to buy all the figures, despite them being very similar, and is a really cool bonus that does help that $20 price point. Really, really cool, and honestly, it's nice that you don't have to buy different members of different teams to get their Megazord. If you just want Ninja Storm, you want nothing to do with Mighty Morphin, just get the 3 Ninja Storm Rangers here, and you get the Megazord. If you just want Mighty Morphin and don't want Ninja Storm, you don't have to worry about parts being mixed in. It's not like Marvel Legends where you sometimes have to buy an Avengers character that got stuck in a Spider-Man wave. I may be a little bitter on that. But, really, really cool. I love the concept of these Megazords, and I'm looking forward to getting more of them. Overall, Wave 1 of the Power Rangers Legacy 6.5-inch line is really good. Honestly, I feel like Bandai of America has made some missteps with their collector's market, giving us $80 Morphers and $120 Zords or $200 Thunder Megazords and $80 Communicators and just really expensive stuff. Or what I thought was the most egregious was the $17 5-inch figures. The movie ones are cool because those suits had never been made before, but they were still really expensive, especially ones that were basically nicer painted Super Megaforce figures. It never felt like they were trying to do collector's figures. It was like, here's something that not many people are wanting, so we'll just release them, and we'll make some money off them because we can sell less, but we'll make more money because we're selling them for 17 bucks a piece. The people that really want them will get them, but the general public won't go for it. That was the attitude it got, especially when those figures hit Walmart. And now we're here. The Legacy figure line is rebooted, actually being called the Legacy line this time. The others was just the name that I think the fandom gave it and some listings had for it. But this is what actually feels like a Legacy Power Rangers line. It's not just Mighty Morphin. It's Mighty Morphin, Ninja Storm, and In Space too, because they're coming up in the next wave. This is every season of Power Rangers, eventually, I'm sure. This is a line that is just getting started. It is here to rival DC Multiverse, Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series. The 6-inch scale is the collector's scale of the modern era, and these figures definitely feel like they're made for adult collectors and not just nicer painted versions of the toys for kids. This is for fans of the old shows that want nice, new, articulated figures of their favorite characters. I'm really looking forward to what they're doing with this line. It'll only get better from here. This is a solid wave. Quality control is on point. Paint is really good. Outside of the issue with the Green Ranger wrists, which mostly was probably my fault for ripping the hands off too fast, they're solid figures. The Build-A-Megazord concept is fantastic and will probably entice a lot of people, as these Megazord figures are something brand new. We haven't gotten something like that before. And these are a cheaper alternative to figure arts that are larger. Honestly, I'm so excited for the rest of this line, and I'll be bringing you guys reviews of this as long as I can. And right now, I like it more than Star Wars Black Series, and it could possibly be better than Marvel Legends. Just got to get things nailed down with accessories. I feel like their one flaw is the lack of the personal weapons for the Rangers, but I understand budgeting is a concern with the big old Megazord parts. So we'll see how it goes in the future, but I'm looking forward to this line. Bandai of America, if you are watching this for whatever reason, I really do like these figures and I hope to see it continue. And I would like to see those personal weapons get released somehow in the future. It would be nice to see. But overall, highly recommended. These have started hitting Target stores as well as Walmart. Should hit Toys R Us in the near future. They retail for $19.99, and this is just the first wave. The next wave, we get a few more Mighty Morphin Rangers and the first couple In Space Rangers, and the wave after that will finish In Space and Mighty Morphin. And then we'll see what teams we'll get next. So, until next time, this is Soundout saying goodbye.